Are we up? Is this the show? Okay, sounds good. Heard absolutely nothing.
Hello, back there. Everybody wake up.
What up, everybody? Welcome to The Sweat. We're here now. You are there, and side effects of the show, well, includes hopefully making money, uncontrollable laughter, and, well, we don't really know what else, as you can see.
You wrote misery, but
I did write misery. I wasn't going to say that, but
I told him.
We can go there. We have a fantastic hour lined up for all of you at home.
Yeah,
Jessie?
Thanks for looking at the rundown for us tonight. Appreciate that.
Only day 2 of
So
our
we
return.
interviewed Yankees manager Aaron Boone. What he says is the reason New York is finding success despite injuries to its biggest stars. You definitely want to hear that.
We're also going to look ahead to an 8-game main slate around Major League Baseball, who you should roster in the tiers contest, and Put Up Your Bukes makes its triumphant return.
Ooh, but we're starting in the NBA, so showdown picks are coming up because right now we got some chasing and fading to get to with Karin Phillips from the showdowleague.com and RotoWire's Alex Barutha.
All right, Karin, in an absolute stunner, the Pelicans land the top pick in the NBA draft lottery, and Zion Williamson's odds to go number 1 overall, now minus 2,500 on DK Sportsbook. So chase or fade for me here. New Orleans will keep the pick and draft Zion.
Oh, yes, you have to chase this. You have to keep the pick and draft him in order to trade him, which is something that could possibly happen. And when you think about the David Griffin, it's the guy in charge down in the Big Easy. You have to remember that he was the GM in Cleveland when they got LeBron, kept Kyrie, and sent Andrew Wiggins off for Kevin Love. So if anyone could do some willing and dealing, it's David Griffin. We have no idea what's going to happen with this because who would have ever thought the New Orleans Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies would be picking 1 and 2. Last night was a shocker and complete anarchy, which is why I loved it so much. But yes, of course, Zion's still going 1, but will the 504 be his new area code? I have no idea. Ask me in 2 months.
Yeah, he did not seem very happy about that last night, by the way.
That's because he wanted to go where I wanted him to go, which was Atlanta, which I live.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I was on the phone with Atlanta Hawks credentialed people already with story ideas, trying to get my pass for next season lined up, and then we all had our dreams crushed when they got 7th.
Yeah.
I'm still upset about that.
You and all the Knicks fans out there. So, Alex, chase your fate for me. New Orleans will keep the pick and draft Zion.
Yeah, I mean, I'll chase this. Zion has the potential to be one of the best players in the league. I mean, people talk about him as a prospect like he's LeBron, Anthony Davis, guys in that tier. So I think literally if any team had landed the number 1 pick, they would have drafted Zion. My guess is that they'll try to keep him. But, yeah, I mean, this feels like a no doubt to me.
All right, moving on to the second pick. John Morant is the favorite to go in that spot with minus 215 odds. The Grizzlies currently hold that pick, so chase or fade John Morant going number 2 is a safe bet here, Alex.
I'm not sure I would call it safe, so I guess I'm technically fading this. I mean, I think if I was in their position, I would draft John Morant, have him play under Mike Conley for a while, develop some skills that way. It's obviously crucial to have a really good point guard in the NBA, but I mean, we shouldn't forget about RJ Barrett either, who was the number 1 prospect coming out of high school before Zion Williamson. I mean, the whole craze happened. He's a great scorer. He's got great physical tools. So it wouldn't shock me if RJ Barrett, was selected number 2. But, if I had to bet, I would probably assume Morant would go by number 2. But I would not call it safe per se.
Karin, chase or fade John Morant going number 2 is a safe bet.
Oh, I'm chasing it because John Morant is probably already picking out apartments in Memphis. But I agree. If I was Memphis, I would go up to RJ Barrett, put him at the 2, and then go get me a point guard in free agency after the Mike Conley era is over because he's getting up there. He's getting older, and we know that. And he's been battling some injuries the past couple of years. I think if this was Phoenix at the 2 spot, like we thought it was going to happen, then it would have been a sure bet because I just think Phoenix needed a point guard more than they needed anything. And I think if Phoenix would have got number 1, they still might have taken Ja Morant. But again, like I've said, the past 4 years in NBA free agency and the draft in summer has taught me to write everything in pencil because this league is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so let's look ahead a little bit here to the summer and some free agency, Karin. Of course, this all means that Zion dream, it is dead for the Knicks, but the team's summer plans, here we go, still involve trying to land Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You can already bet on their chances next season, provided that they land both stars. DK Sportsbook has them at plus 1,200 to win the 2020 NBA Finals. Karin, chase or fade, New York will win the title next season if they have KD and Kyrie.
Fade it. Listen, I wouldn't bet this with your money. I just don't believe. I never believed the Knicks were going to get the number 1 pick. I don't believe they're going to get Kyrie Irving, and I don't believe they're going to get Kevin Durant, and I don't think they're going to get Anthony Davis because nothing ever goes right for the Knicks. And this would need like two huge things to go right for them. And I just think even if Kyrie and Durant wanted to go there, the Knicks will find a way to mess this up. Like I said, this league is crazy. A year ago, we all knew that Paul George was going to LA. It didn't happen. We had no idea LeBron was going to the Lakers. It happened. Magic Johnson quit before game 82. And I watched the Boston Celtics lose 4 straight games to Milwaukee, a team that has a deer as their mascot. I don't know what's going to happen in the NBA, and I wish everybody would stop saying these things are going to happen because we just don't know. And it's New York, and nothing ever happens good in New York.
Yeah, but that's the fun part, us getting to sit here and speculate and guess. Hey, Karin, where does Kyrie end up? Does he stay in Boston?
That guy thought the world was flat, man. Like trying to figure out where he wants to go. I've given that up, and he's my favorite player in the league, and I've just given up on everything that's Kyrie Irving except when he plays basketball.
Alex, if New York lands KD and Kyrie, do they win the title in 2020?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I would not take that bet. I think, let's say KD and Kyrie Irving do join up. I mean, we saw when, the big three happened in Miami, that team took a little while to gel too. So, and KD and Kyrie Irving aren't necessarily, it doesn't seem like the easiest guys to play with from a chemistry standpoint. I think they both have different kind of objectives at this point in their career. So, I mean, maybe they could win the title at some point if they join up, but I wouldn't necessarily bet it being the first year that they join together.
Hey, where do you think KD ends up? You think he ends up in New York, though?
I actually do think KD will sign with the Knicks. I mean, just from a lot of people, guys who work for ESPN, Yahoo, guys like that, all think it's going to happen. So that's what I'm feeling.
Okay.
All right, well, we're going to break down tonight's Raptors-Bucks game from a DFS standpoint later in the show. But for now, let's stick with betting. So Milwaukee is 7-point favorite right now. Alex, chase or fade the Bucks cover tonight at home against Toronto?
I mean, this is a pretty big spread, but I will chase that Milwaukee will cover for a couple reasons. They're the more rested team, and they're at home. Those two things play a big factor. But also, Kyle Lowry is hurt. He dislocated his thumb at the end of Game 7, and he today mentioned it was hard for him to grip a ball. I mean, he shot 25% in the series against Philly. If he can't grip a ball properly, I don't know what he's shooting from 3 now. So, in this first game, I think the spread is pretty big, but I would take Milwaukee.
Karin, the Bucks cover tonight at home against Toronto. Chase it or fade it?
Oh, I'm chasing that. They're home. They're gelling. They're rolling. And for the simple fact that even if Kyle Lowry was fully healthy, Kyle Lowry is on that roster. And as long as he's on that roster, I don't trust the Raptors. And it doesn't matter how good Kawhi Leonard is and these miracle buzzer beater he hits. As long as the number 7's out there, give me the opposing team every time. And the Bucks just rolling. They just look like they're on a mission to go to the finals after what they did to Boston. So I'm chasing this very easily. This is the same team that had more double-digit wins than any other team all season long. So give me the Bucks in this one.
All right, we're going to have you two back for Showdown Picks right after we bring you a 2-on-1 interview with Yankees manager Aaron Boone, who actually liked us.
Wow.
At least it felt like it.
That's awesome, yeah. But real quick, here's a Fantasy Flash.
Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Western Conference Finals, Game 3 between the Sharks and Blues goes down tonight in St. Louis with the series tied at 1 game apiece. First couple of games have been high-scoring affairs with the teams combining for 9 goals in Game 1, then 6 goals in Game 2. Almost all of San Jose's offense has come from their top 2 lines, with Logan Couture leading the way. The Sharks centerman not only leads the team, but also the league in playoff goals with 13, and playoff points with 19. Couture is the third most expensive player in tonight's showdown contest, $10,800, but should be well worth it. If you pay up for Couture, you're going to need to find some value, and the St. Louis side has plenty of it. The Blues are getting most of their scoring from their depth players in this series, and Tyler Bozak could be an attractive option in this showdown contest. Bozak is on a 3-game point streak and can rack up the face-off win, centering the Blues' third line. He'll cost you just $5,800 in salary and has plenty of upside in tonight's contest.
Listen, I know DraftKings headquarters is located in Boston, but when you can get a guest like Aaron Boone here, people, you take it. It's the manager of the Yankees joining us now. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your day, Aaron. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be on with you guys.
All right, so your team has been decimated by injuries this season, but you've managed to get wins anyway and remain one of the American League's best teams. So who do you think has stepped up most for your team while some of your biggest stars have been out, both on the field and also, in the clubhouse?
Man, it's hard to say. We've had so many people, not only, young players kind of come up through our system and help us win ball games and play an important role, but we've had guys come from outside the organization. We got Cameron Maben, who's come in and played really well. Tyro Estrada, one of our young players that we certainly didn't expect to be in the big leagues at this point. He's come up and played a role. As far as in the clubhouse, our leadership, the CC Sabathias, Brett Gardner, Aaron Judge, even while he's down, has played a big role in just kind of keeping this group together. And I think they've all kind of rallied around this whole next man up. One guy goes down, hey, somebody's here to pick up the slack. And they've really done a really good job of coming in with kind of a singular focus on trying to win ball games each and every day.
Yeah, and speaking of Judge, what information can you share with us regarding Aaron or Giancarlo Stanton returning?
So Aaron's doing well. He's not started baseball activities yet, but I feel like he's getting close to that point. He's doing all the range of motion, core strengthening, started to really work his lower half as far as conditioning and stuff. So hopefully he's getting close to where he starts getting introduced to baseball activities again. As far as Giancarlo, he's down in Tampa right now. He's actually taking live at-bats today off of live pitching. Did that yesterday as well, doing all his defensive stuff. So he's definitely moving in the right direction to where hopefully soon he'll be starting a rehab assignment and then not be far after that.
So you just mentioned him, but earlier this year, CC Sabathia announced this will be his final MLB season, but he's been having a really solid one so far. He eclipsed that 3,000 career strikeout mark a few weeks ago. Do you believe he's 100% ready to retire at the end of the season?
I do. I think he's very much at peace with that decision, one he made this winter, that this would be his final season. I don't think there's any way we're getting him back, even though he's obviously still a very good pitcher. I think he feels like it's time, but his sole focus is on being back here and trying to help us win a championship. And but I think once we're done at the end of this and hopefully hoisting the trophy, then he's gonna ride off into the sunset.
Well, it does seem there's a shift happening with your club. We're seeing all these young pieces with star potential emerging. How safe is it to say the Yankees have officially entered a new era?
Yeah, I think that's kind of happened really over the last couple of years, and even started transition before I got here in 2017. You got a sense in watching this club and watching the Severinos and the Judges and these guys really kind of connect to the fan base, and the fan base has really taken to them. I think you saw that in the playoffs in 2017. You see the connection there is with this team, and now the Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andújar's and the new wave of young guys that have come up. This is a team that I feel like has really connected and has moved on into the kind of the next new era of Yankee baseball.
So there's been some rumblings of the Yankees having interest in free agent pitcher Dallas Keuchel. Do you think you need to shake things up and make some roster moves, or do you like what you have right now?
I love what we have. Those are conversations more with the front office. I know they're constantly, looking at every angle to try and make us better or trying to improve, or certainly when we've dealt with some of these injuries, we've had to go outside the organization a little bit. We're bringing Kendrys Morales in now to help us. to give us a real good presence as a switch hitter in our lineup while guys are down. So I would never rule anything out, but that's more of a question for the front office as they constantly are looking at where we can look to improve our club or where we need to kind of fortify ourselves.
All right, well, not to be that guy, but the Red Sox taking you out in the ALDS last season. Describe to us the rivalry with Boston right now.
It's look, it's always simmering, right? And I felt like last year with both teams, obviously being great and, both winning 100 games, the Red Sox ultimately winning the World Series and knocking us out. They've got a little bit of a leg up on us right now, but those are definitely special games to be a part of. One of the great things about playing for the Yankees is knowing that, 18, 19 times in the regular season and potentially beyond, that you're going to have some games that mean a lot, not only to the people on the field, but mean a lot to the people in the country and the fan bases, which are both so passionate. It's a special thing to be a part of.
So when you're playing the Red Sox, does that game feel any different? Like, what's the vibe in the clubhouse, or is it just another team?
Yeah, I mean, 162 games, we do our very best to try and treat every day as the most important, and every game matters, obviously. But there's no doubt when both teams are really good too, like they are now, it's undeniable that those games seem to have a little more attached to them. You can feel it in the ballpark, you can feel it in the clubhouse, and you've got to be at your best if you're going to beat them. And so I would say there's always a little extra when you're playing against Boston.
So it has been a full decade since the Yankees have made the World Series, a sizable drought many New York fans are not used to. But how much do you believe you have a championship caliber team right now, especially once everyone is healthy?
Yeah, I mean, we felt that way last year. We certainly feel that way this year. I feel like we have a chance once we are whole and we continue to get players back, that we have a chance to be better than we were last year. And we're going to need to be, because obviously the American League, the top teams in the American League that you got to go through are really tough. And then obviously, hopefully getting a chance to play in a World Series. We certainly feel like we're one of the teams capable of doing that. It's May now, so that's a long way off, and you got to play a lot of really good baseball to have that opportunity. But that's certainly our expectation. That's what we're set out to do, and hopefully we'll put ourselves in a position come October to be one of those teams fighting for it.
Now, obviously it's early, but come on, you got to be a great candidate for Manager of the Year right now, considering the injuries that you've had to work around. Yeah. So what would it mean to you to win that in just your second season here?
You know what? Look, personal awards can be nice, and I'm sure if something like that ever happened, it would be great. But the goal here is to win. First and foremost, hopefully we can win our division, and then we're chasing a championship. That's what we're out to do. That's what we're set out to do. And if I were to ever win an award like that, it truly is a reflection of players.
Aaron Boone, manager of the Yankees, a humble man. Thanks for putting up with us. We appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way.
Nice to be on with you guys. Thank you.
Hey there, it's Brendan Glasheen on your screen with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Water always finds its level. Just when we thought an AFC East team other than the Patriots finally had its bleat together, the Jets fired General Manager Mike Maccagnan and Vice President of Player Personnel Brian Heimerdinger Wednesday. Here's a piece of a statement from team CEO Christopher Johnson. Mike helped to execute the strategic vision of the organization during the last 4 seasons and especially the past few months. However, I came to the decision to make a change after much thought and a careful assessment of what would be in the best long-term interests of the New York Jets. Head coach Adam Gase assumes GM duties. Apparently, he and Maccagnan didn't see eye to eye about stuff. For example, the New York Post reported the two disagreed on how much they should offer Le'Veon Bell. Gase responded, "I don't know who puts that stuff out there. It pisses me off a little bit, blah, blah, blah." Bell signed 2 months ago. Maccagnan oversaw free agency, draft prep, the draft itself. Then he gets canned? This is stunning. It's truly up to Sam Darnold to save this franchise. A sophomore slump can't happen.
Oh, man, what a Jets move. All right, let's move on to baseball, shall we? Specifically taking a look at tonight's MLB Tears of Joy contest, but we aren't going to break it down for you.
No way.
These three, it's DK Live, Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, and Gary and Thorne, they'll be the ones doing the breaking down.
Splendid. Tier 1 has Christian Yelich, George Springer, Austin Meadows, Charlie Blackmon, and Julian's mom. Who do you like the most here, Steve?
Well, if it's Julian's mom, we know Julian's not going to pick that one. You know,
It's a reference from last night, by the way. Anyone who missed the
joke's
show,
running way too long.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not even 24 hours. So of all the names here, there's a lot of big names here, but the one I actually like the most is Austin Meadows. I feel like he's screaming for you to pick him. You know, it's not like the last kid in Doswell to be picked here. This guy still's got some really good numbers here. And, you know, of the four, he's probably the one that's going to be the least owned. I mean, he's equally as good as a spot as any of these guys here. He's going against Jose Urena with a 353 WOBA, 4 of his 7 home runs to left-handed bats. Meadows has a 476 WOBA, 382 ISO, 7 of his 8 home runs to right-handed bats here. So batting leadoff, too, that doesn't hurt either. So I love this spot for Meadows.
Jules, who are you going with here? And I believe, by the way, the Tiers contest locks at 6:40 tonight.
Yeah, early lock here because of that Cubs-Reds game. But if this spot screams for one player, it's George Springer. He's obviously going to be the chalk, but give me as many Astros bats, particularly righties, as I can get here. It's tough to find the 5,800 to roster Springer in Classic, so Tiers is the perfect place to get exposure to him. He's just too hot to fade right now. He's averaging over 17 DK points in his last 10 games. He has 5 games with more than 20 DK points in his last 9. Last night, he scored 25 DK points in that lefty-righty matchup against Ryan Carpenter, who stinks. Tonight, he faces Gregory Soto, who might stink even more. So it's just too good of a spot. We've seen all the damage that the Astros have been doing lately. It's a perfect spot to get exposure to George Springer.
Garion, you look extremely smart in those glasses. Say something smart for us, please.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to try to differentiate yourself in Tier 1. There are tiers with many more options where you can try and do that. But I'm kind of with Steve here. I'm looking to stay away from the Astros. Like Julian said, there's good reason why everyone's going to gravitate towards those bats. They're in a fantastic spot. It's not just Soto. It's Detroit's bullpen being, aside from Baltimore, the worst unit in all of baseball. But if you look at what Jake Arrieta has kind of devolved into the last couple of years, he's still a ground ball pitcher, but only when it's right-handed bats. That ground ball to fly ball ratio is down to 0.96 against left-handed bats this season. It's a huge reason why he's allowing more than 2 home runs to lefties per 9 innings through his first 8 starts of 2019. I know some of the road home splits might scare people away from Yelich, but if there's a park that's comparable to Miller Park, it's Citizens Bank Park. So I think Yelich in Philadelphia tonight is a really good spot.
I would just like you to know when you first gave your answer, Julian's over here nodding his head. Just in disagreement.
Fourth wall once again. All right, guys, 5 players in Tier 2. Who's the best of the bunch, Garion?
I think for me, this comes down to Joey Gallo. I know there's some really good players here. Arenado obviously has fantastic splits against all left-handed pitching. He's really been coming on as of late. But specifically for tiers, I want to look towards the highest ceiling. And it's very rare we get any player with a ceiling as high as Joey Gallo. We know what he can do on any given night with his plus power. I'm almost concerned Texas is going to be too good. They've got so many left-handed bats in this lineup that maybe Jorge Lopez doesn't even get like a second chance to face Joey Gallo, which would be horrible. But a 432 WOBA to lefties, over 3 home runs per 9. It's really hard to steer clear of Gallo in this tier.
Steve, Tier 2, 5 players. Who do you like?
Yeah, it's definitely Joey Gallo. You know, I know everyone read my MLB cheat sheet from today. You know, big smile. That's a great article. But yeah, obviously Joey Gallo is the biggest boomer bust guy here in this tier, but this is definitely a huge potential for the boom tonight. As Gary mentioned, how bad Jorge Lopez is, especially against left-handed bats. This Rangers lineup is absolutely stacked with lefties tonight, so obviously there's some concern that he gets knocked out of this game early, but it seems like it doesn't even matter when it comes to Gallo at this point. He has just been mashing from both sides of the plate. We saw what he did against Justin Verlander to hit one that hasn't even landed yet. I mean, Gallo has just been that good this season, and with a huge ceiling like he has, it's kind of a no-brainer here in Tier 2.
Jules, you on the Gallo train too?
Yeah, we'll make it unanimous. I was prepared to go with Joey Gallo here, but I thought maybe some of the other guys might have some love for Nolan Arenado in this spot. So I'll just say Arenado, of his 11 home runs, 9 of them have come on the road. So I don't mind that at all either.
All right, we are going to skip Tier 5. We're going to head right down to Tier 6. Steven, please tell me who you enjoy in this tier.
Yeah, for Tier 6, there's a lot of huge names in this tier. Like, I was surprised at how stacked it is. And, at first I was looking at JD Martinez, but when you kind of start diving into his numbers, it's actually kind of shocking that he only has a .098 isolated power against righties thus far. So I think Tommy Pham's the most logical choice here. Again, really good matchup against Jose Urena. Pham, 374 WOBA, 180 ISO against right-handed bats so far this season. And look, if you're taking Meadows in Tier 1, would make a lot of sense to stack him with Pham, who's batting second. You get that 1-2 punch there. So I like Pham a lot in this spot.
Garen, you mentioned when we were talking about Tier 1 that there are other tiers where you can kind of differentiate yourself from the competition. Is Tier 6 that tier?
There's just so many names. But as Steve mentioned, even though there's a bunch of good names, a lot of guys not in their ideal split. I sort of landed on the 2 names that Steve also did, kind of deciding between Tommy Pham and JD Martinez. I don't know. I just think JD's set to have a crazy run here. I know he's got 3 home runs in his last 2 games. It's going to draw some eyes already, but every advanced statistic said he was due to break out at some point, especially against right-handed pitching, whether it was his xWOBA, his home run to fly ball ratio. I know Marquez has been fantastic against righties. I know he's been fantastic away from Coors Field. But I still just think Martinez is the highest upside of any one of these guys. And if he can draw 2 plate appearances against a Rockies bullpen in Fenway, that's enough for me. So I'm going to go with JD Martinez here.
Jules, Tier 6, what's your strategy? How do you decide?
Yeah, these guys are looking at the wrong member of the Red Sox. I'm going with Rafael Devers here. And as Garion mentioned about Marquez, his numbers are very good away from home. But you got to look, 3 of those outings at Tampa, at Miami, at San Francisco, 3 of the easiest places for pitchers. So at Fenway Park, I think this is going to be a wake-up call for Marquez. And then we've got Devers, who's been red hot lately, 14.5 DK points, averaging in his last 10 games. In his last 4 games during this home streak, he's had a minimum of 16 DK points in each of those games, averaging almost 21 in each of them. He's got the opposite hand matchup at home here. Devers has been almost 3 DraftKings points per game better at Fenway Park this season. I think it's an awesome spot for Devers.
Right,
Julian with some good research is downright shocking. That was some good analysis. Like, I am shocked.
Wow.
This is brand new. Like, we're starting over. That was pretty good, but don't get used to it.
Is that because he read your cheat sheet?
Those are home research numbers. Those are from Edlo's brain, not Buchanan's
Okay, we got to get going.
brain.
That was enough.
Okay,
right,
let's
quiet,
mark the
Jules.
tape on that moment when Steve complimented Julian. You 3, please hang tight. Steve, he's not going to be all nice this show. He's going to put up his bukes a little later. For now, though, here's Pat Mayo looking ahead to the PGA Championship.
No more wavering. Time to pick a champion. Despite the cavalcade of favorites playing tremendous golf entering the year's second major, I'm going to drop down to Tier 2 and roll with my guy, Xander Schauffele. With top 6 finishes in 4 of his 8 career majors, wins against the world's premier talent, the Tour Championship and a WGC, along with elite ratings in ball striking in the key proximity ranges, it feels like this is finally time for the X-Man to add his name to the storied list of Keegan Bradley, Lucas Glover, Jason Duffner, Todd Hamilton, Rich Beam, and Dustin Johnson as one-time major champions. Xander Schauffele for me. Rick, who are you taking to win?
My pick to win is Jon Rahm. We've seen him be elite off the tee. His game is trending in the right direction, even winning the team event, which keeps him out of a lot of our models. This Bethpage Black course is going to be challenging, and he's up to the test. It's going to be Rahm raising the trophy on Sunday.
Graza.
Well, this is the time for Ricky Fowler. I think he finally breaks through. Been so close so many times. He's had a really good 2019, just gaining strokes everywhere. Has a win earlier in the year, and I think he finds a way at Bethpage to finally get a major victory.
Davis.
Xander Schauffele will be the winner of the 2019 PGA Championship at Bethpage Black. The PGA Championship has historically been an event that has been conducive to allowing first-time winners. Xander has contended at several majors, was really in the hunt at the Masters, and his game is in a really good place. He's 34th on tour strokes gained off the tee. He gained strokes approaching the green, around the green, and putting. He's 19th on tour in strokes gained tee to green, 13th on tour strokes gained total. His odds to win at 25-1. You know, the market thinks that he can win. He really is in a new class of golfer. So Xander Schauffele will be your 2019 PGA Championship winner.
Back here live in our Boston-based DraftKings studios. It's new, working out the kinks still. It's the sweat, and Reed Fowler's kind enough to join us now. And so is Jeff Ulrich, who survived another night in his fart-infested office. In case you missed it yesterday, Jeff breaking the news that his dog has no respect for Jeff and breaks wind quite frequently.
None. Zero respect.
Oh, I got Jessie. You have to read all the questions now in this segment.
So sorry. Did you just say fart-infested?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what we bring to this show.
It was a good description. Yeah. I mean, it was the office was fart infested, the entire show, too.
Okay, all right. Well, farts are not why we have you two here. Instead, it's a new segment that we like to call For Better or Worse.
For better or for worse, new segment. Steph came up with it. Steph's our producer. For better, Bettor. Get it?
Okay, I got it. The following players have better or worse odds to win the PGA Championship. Sorry, I'm literally crying.
It's okay.
Starting with Jordan Spieth at plus 4,000. Jeff, for better or worse?
First of all, I'm sure our producer is extremely excited about her new segment and the way it's being kicked off. But I think that Jordan Spieth should have much worse odds this week. I think the only reason he's even had around plus 4,000 is because he's getting credit for his past major championship wins, which I guess, is something. But if you really look at his body of work over the last year and a half, and this just isn't me saying this is pretty much everyone at this point, he's just not the same player. His ball striking isn't close to what it used to be. His off-the-tee stats, he's something ranked like 200th coming into this week, which is really bad on a course where Bethpage Black, an event like the PGA Championship, where traditionally the last 5 or 6 winners have just been monsters off the tee, top 30 in strokes gained off the tee. Jordan Spieth is nowhere near that. He's also poor in approaches over 200 yards right now. He's just not the right player for a course, tough U.S. Open course with thick rough, narrow fairways. He should have much higher odds in this to win this week.
Reed, Jordan Spieth at plus 4,000 for better or worse?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with Jeff here. I don't want to be like Bukes and say that Jeff does good analysis like Julian does good analysis, but he's right. I mean, Jordan Spieth is not a good play at all. I mean, if you look at his odds, he's right by Paul Casey. He's near Patrick Cantlay. He's near Matt Kuchar, Sergio Garcia. You're telling me this guy has the same odds to win this tournament as those guys who've clearly had better finishes so far this season and guys who have won as well. I mean, I maybe too, like the Byron Nelson, he got a top 20 or top 25 around there. And so now we're giving credit to Jordan Spieth when he gets inside the top 25. And Jeff mentioned off the tee, he's like 120th of the last 24 rounds, par 4 scoring, long par 4s, whatever you want to call it. He's just not doing well at all. So if you look at just plus 4,000, give me the guys like Kuchar, Sergio, and those guys as opposed to Jordan Spieth.
Reed, Louis Oosthuizen plus 6,600. Now, you told me in the office earlier today you like this guy. You never told me why, which likely means you're going to roster him in our head-to-head. But now's your chance, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I usually like to rag on Ulrich here for rostering old guy Louis Oosthuizen with a back injury, but I actually really like him this week, especially for DraftKings, right? I mean, he's coming in, I think, around 55 or around 60, around there where his odds are on Sportsbook. But yeah, I like him this week. If you just look at major history, this guy has the Grand Slam of runner-ups. I mean, he performs really well at major tracks. This course specifically, if you just take away some of the past finishes of recent, look, I mean, at this course where you need to be a long hitter, where you need to hit it in the fairway, I don't necessarily think with Louis Oosthuizen that that's the case, man. This guy hits a ton of fairways. He obviously has shown the proclivity to be really good around the greens, being able to chip it in quite a few times. But even the past tournaments that have been played here at the Barclays, or even just corollaries at the U.S. Open, who pops up? Louis Oosthuizen. So I actually like him this week.
Jeff, what do you think about the odds? It hasn't played since Augusta, so maybe flying under the radar here a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm going to have to change my sign back there to just an asterisk. Fade Reed's picks except for Louis. So I think this is a pretty good price. I mean, I don't want to say like he should be super he should have much shorter odds than this. I think 66 is a pretty good price for Louis, though, in a major, especially one where Reed alluded to. he's got experience at Bethpage Black, and he's a pretty good driver of the ball. Like, he's top 50 in driving accuracy, and he still gets it out there. So he's one of those players, like I mentioned, who's pretty strong off the tee. And people forget, too, he shared the lead after 36 holes at Augusta. So it's not like he's coming in playing bad. He did take some time off, but for a guy who's got injury problems, maybe that's not a bad thing. He just is really good at peaking for majors. So I think anytime you get in Louis at 66 at a major championship, it's really not that bad. I'd probably just say he's about where he should be, though, for odds.
All right, Jonathan Vegas, plus 10,000. Jeff, how do you feel about these odds here?
Yeah, I mean, another player where if he had just a little bit of a better record in a major championship, I'd say that his odds should be better. I'm going to say they're pretty much right where they should be, though. He's playing really well. Like, he's a tee to green monster right now. He's got the distance to compete at Bethpage Black. And he's more talented, I think, than people realize. I mean, he hasn't won that many big events over his career, but he's got the talent to compete with the top players in the world when he's on, and he's been on for most of the year. So he did play Bethpage Black once. He was top 25 when he played it. It's coming in well. He's a player I could see really shocking this week with like a top 5 finish. I think plus 100, though, for a guy who just hasn't really competed in many past major championships is still a pretty fair price. I'm going to say he's right where he should be for this segment.
Reed, how do you feel about these odds?
Yeah, I like him. I mean, just look at the guys around him, too. We have Keith Mitchell. Ryan Moore's around there as well. I mean, some of these other guys that we know name value. But Johnny Vegas, like Jeff mentioned, really good off the tee so far in the last 24 rounds. And he's just performing really well. I mean, strokes gained par 4 at long distance. Like, there's 7 par 4s over 450 yards. And I think 3 of those are over 500 yards. And when you look at Johnny Vegas, he's a guy that has been sneaky long off the tee, but even really doing well good with his long irons. Like, proximity from 200 plus yards, not that good. But again, like I mentioned, when you look at driving distance, he's top 35 over the last 24 rounds. At plus 10,000, even getting that top 10, if you go on Sportsbook, you're getting plus 1,800 for a top 5, and I believe plus 900 for a top 10. I really like those secondary bets as well, that this guy really strong off the tee, and if he keeps it in the fairway just right, he could contend for an elite finish here.
Siwoo Kim, plus 15,000. Wow. Reed, should he have better or worse odds here? It's one of the best putters on tour.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's actually one of the worst putters. But
I teed you up on that one.
When he gets it going, though, on the putting surfaces, we see him perform really well. Obviously, the Players, we've seen him win these bigger tournaments, and I know Justin alluded to this. These bigger tournaments and these majors, a Siwoo Kim, who's usually at plus 200, right, like plus 20,000 for these bigger ones. That's where we like to see him. So I think his odds should be a little bit better. I think they're a little short. He's played well actually this season with some top 3 finishes. But just recent form would get me a little bit off on Siwoo. I like to see him more at like plus like a 200 to 1 as opposed to where he's at now.
Jeff, he has yet to make a cut at the PGA Championship in 3 tries.
Yeah, no, I mean, that doesn't really worry me too much. I mean, look, Siwoo Kim is a volatile putter. He's not a bad putter. He's 37th on strokes gained putting this year. And he's got a really good short game, one of the best short games in the world. I think he's 10th in around the green stats and scrambling. I think these odds are actually great if you can get them. I think they're too long. I think he should be better in the odds. I think he should be much shorter. I think he should be around plus 8,000 or plus 10,000. This is a player who's won a big event. He's won one of the biggest events in the world. He's one of the most talented players under 25 on tour. There's no doubt about it. I think he just gets discredited a little bit because he tends to be volatile. He misses a couple cuts, and then he makes a couple cuts, and he contends when he does. But look, he's top 50 in par 4 scoring. He's also very efficient on the par 4s between 450 and 500 yards. There's a lot of long par 4s on Bethpage Black. He's going to have a good week off the tee. He's going to have to keep it in the fairway, but he's fully capable of that. And if he does, would not be shocked if he contends this week. He was T21 at Augusta. It was his best finish ever at that event. I expect him to have a very good finish this week. I think he's a really good sleeper.
All right, well, people really want a sure thing. So hit us with those slate-approved picks, who you're rostering no matter what. Hopefully it's a sure thing, Jeff.
It's Xander Schauffele for me, from a fantasy perspective, from daily fantasy. I can't pass up. He's so strong in all the areas. Good pull-up bent grass putter, so I'll take Xander.
Reed, who's it going to be?
Yeah, Reed.
Yeah, give me Patrick Cantlay. He's at 8,200. Jeff mentioned it in the Mayo show, too. I think he's going to be highly owned. Doesn't matter. I mean, he's one of these guys that, like Xander, is on that second tier. Does really well. Solid finishes. It's a hero challenge. Par 4 scoring. He can get it out there. And his around the green game is a lot better than it has been in the past. So can't we?
Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy your night. We appreciate it. We got NBA Hey, no problem. We got NBA Showdown picks coming up next, right after the Tour Junkies spill the beans on Bubba Watson.
I don't understand Bubba. You like Bubba Watson on the podcast.
Yeah.
Freaking Bubba Watson.
Yeah.
This is make no mistake about it. This is the PGA Championship, but this is on a U.S. Open style course. And if you're going to talk, if you're talking about the guys that can play well in the U.S. Open when it comes to not only hitting fairways, but not getting frustrated because it can play difficult, a guy that, that's got to have their head about him, that can be level-headed on the golf course. Bubba is not that guy. So I don't care if it's a PGA Championship and they may set it up a little bit easier than you could for a U.S. Open, which is possible, but I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty difficult. I think Bubba's going to have a hard time out here. And if you're looking at it, switch this up and let's just say this is the U.S. Open and not the PGA Championship.
Which is
you are not taking Bubba. I know you're not. I know David Barnett. You are not taking Bubba Watson in a U.S. Open style course because it just does not fit him in all senses of anything.
In all senses of anything. Is that your hard-hitting analysis? In all senses of anything, it's not fitting Bubba Watson. Okay. Well, it is because, number one,
he's
I think
121st, by the way, in the field in driving accuracy. Just throw that out there.
One of the things I think is really important is strokes gained off the tee. Bubba gains a lot of strokes off the tee. I do think that length matters. I do think you have to be in the fairway, but I think Bubba is creative enough. He'll do just fine at Bethpage. He's second in the field in strokes gained off the tee. He's $8,000 on DraftKings. He will be low owned. I say less than 10%, I think, is probably what's going to happen with Bubba. I mean, maybe he gets talked up a good bit. I don't know. He's 23rd in strokes gained putting on Poana over the last 100 rounds. Bubba likes Poana. Bubba putts well on Poana. This is Poana golf. It's interesting. And over the long term, 100 rounds, he's doing pretty good in Poana. So I like Bubba in terms of the Poana. He's also in pretty good form. I mean, 12th at the Masters, 4th at the Valspar. Had a little hiccup at the Players, made the cut, whatever, not great. 17th at the Arnold Palmer, 15th at the Genesis, 4th at the Waste Management. I mean, Bubba's been playing some pretty good golf this year, and I think he's flying a little bit under the radar. So in terms of GPPs, I'm not saying he's a cash play. I don't think he's a cash play. I don't. But I do think he's a GPP, a viable option. Play. I know. I'm just clarifying for the viewer that I don't think he's a cash play. But I think for a GPP, I think he's a viable option to help differentiate you from the field on DraftKings. I don't think he's going to be that popular.
Back with our NBA panel for one last go-around, which can only mean one thing. We're talking NBA Showdown picks.
Bingo.
So welcome back, Karin Phillips from theshadowleague.com and Alex Barutha from RotoWire.
Okie dokie, gentlemen. Let's get into which players you like for tonight's Raptors-Bucks Showdown contest. Giannis, only $200 more than Kawhi Leonard. So, Karin, does that mean Kawhi is extremely overpriced? And if so, how much? By a lot?
He's not overpriced at all. It just means that, he's riding the wave off the last time we seen Kawhi Leonard play a basketball game, which is he did something that's never been done, which was win a Game 7 with a buzzer beater. I'm still trying to figure out how that shot within. It defied all physics and logic and any earth science that I learned when I was in school. But not overpriced, I would say. I like this price. Now, if we're looking at these guys from a season, all season and how they played, you would kind of think that Giannis would maybe be valued a little higher. But given the playoff run that Kawhi has been on and given that shot, like that guy is priced exactly where he should be.
All right, Alex, do you agree? You feel like Kawhi is priced A-okay tonight?
Yeah, I think it's fine for the most part. Maybe it could be a little bit lower. But, I mean, Kawhi and Giannis have the same playoff usage rate. So I think that factors into some of it. And, we've seen Kawhi he's taking over for Toronto in a lot of these games. While I think Giannis, sometimes has more help from his teammates. I mean, Chris Middleton's a guy who can go off for 30. Bledsoe can get 30. Brook Lopez when he hits shots, guys like that. So, I think part of it's the usage rate. I think part of it's the supporting cast. Overall, I think the price is fine.
All right, Alex, who would you play in the captain spot in this one? That's 1.5 times the salary, but 1.5 times the points.
I think Giannis is the way to go here. Game 1 at home, he's rested. We kind of mentioned that earlier, but I mean, he can go off for 60, 70 fantasy points. I think he has the highest upside of anybody in this game. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. And yeah, you're paying a lot for him, but there are a few middle tier players that you can get to help shore up your lineup anyway.
Karan, who's your captain?
I'm going to agree and go with Giannis as well, but I don't think that you can lose with this one, even if people out there want to go with Kawhi. When you look at the two guys, you think of Giannis and think of all the different ways that he can fill up a stat sheet. Like you said, Giannis has a lot more help than Kawhi has. But when you think about Kawhi and you think about that last series and what they're going to need from him if they want to beat Milwaukee, Kawhi's going to have to do a lot too. And his rebounding numbers are probably going to have to be a little higher, and his assists as well. Besides just scoring a lot of points with Kyle Lowry out and his hand injuries and just him being Kyle Lowry and sucking when you need that guy to be really good. So you can't lose in this, but if I had to pick, give me the Greek Freak.
Yeah, you mentioned the help that Giannis has. So if you want to captain one of the superstars, you're going to need some help. You're going to need some cheap guys in your lineup. So, Karan, which players under 5K are worth using? Under 5K.
Worth using is the term. There are not many. But I did find one from each team. Give me Ilyasova from Milwaukee because that guy can be really sneaky good sometimes. And if you check the box score at the end of the game, you're kind of like, how did he have that many points and that many rebounds? I didn't know he was on the floor for that many minutes. And also give me Fred VanVleet for Toronto because if Lowry is nicked up, I'd look for him to play some big minutes.
All right, who do you got? Need someone cheap, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the Ilyasova call if you need to go really cheap. I mean, at 2,800, he could get close. He could get maybe 8 times value, if he has a good night. But it's not a great crop of players. I mean, I like Brook Lopez. He's kind of struggled last series, so I think his price is kind of artificially deflated. He's a guy who can block a lot of shots, hit a lot of threes. Those are worth a ton of fantasy points. But I'd be hesitant to use guys like Pat Connaughton and George Hill now that Malcolm Brogdon's back. I mean, he's got to take somebody's minutes. And maybe he takes 5 from each guy, and it's a tough call. This under 5K in this game, so you gotta get a little creative for sure.
Yeah, well, Malcolm Brogdon played in his first game since mid-March last week against Boston and did pretty well off the bench. So, Alex, what are you expecting him to do tonight?
I mean, I'm expecting just regular season Malcolm Brogdon. Honestly, I think with the time off, he's been able to recover. He's been able to go through some work and. During the regular season, he basically averaged 15 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, he's a 50, 40, 90 guy. I mean, this is a huge win to get back to the Bucks. I would expect he could go for 25, maybe even 30 fantasy points. It wouldn't shock me.
Karan, what are you expecting out of Brogdon?
Not much necessarily. If I were you, I would stay away from Malcolm Brogdon. And there's no I love Malcolm Brogdon, no hate on his part. It's just that he's never been on this stage and he's still coming back from injury. If it was me, I would wait for game 2, take this as game 1 as an observation, and then go from there. Because you can only, win if he plays really well and he's back in the flow. I don't really give that last Boston series too much to go off of, given that the way Milwaukee was rolling, he didn't have to play any crunch time minutes or no real defense or score any clutch points or come up with any big plays because they just obliterated the Celtics, which I'm still depressed about. So I would give this as a wait-and-see game, and then from there, slot Malcolm Brogdon based off game 1 and then see how he does the rest of the series.
You're depressed about it because of your love for Kyrie?
Yes, and the fact that I picked that team last June to win it all.
Yeah, we remember. We have it on tape.
Yeah. Burn it. Leave it at the old studio.
Yeah, it's not like, we write everything in pencil like you do. We keep it here.
Yeah, we do.
Thanks, guys, for the help. We appreciate it. You both are free to go for the evening. We'll catch up with you soon.
And we'll wrap up the show next with Put Up Your Bukes, and that is baseball, FYI, guys.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash, to trade or not to trade Anthony Davis? That is my question to the New Orleans Pelicans. They won last night's draft lottery, so they hold the number 1 pick. Hope Zion's cool with that. My, those ping pong balls can be magical, huh? NBA insider Shams Charania reports Anthony Davis's stance on a trade has not changed, and newly appointed president of basketball operations David Griffin may try to sway Davis the other way. Griffin said last month he spoke with Rich Paul, Davis's agent, said they were both excited about what they could potentially build in NOLA. Side note, Griffin's got a good luck charm, folks. First official year as Cavs GM, that was 2014, lands the top pick, and LeBron James returns to the land. 5 years later, number 1 pick again. This time he hopes to retain a star player. Or does he not? Griffin can't go wrong either way. He'll take phone calls to acquire elite young talent to complement Zion Williamson.
All right, as promised, we're going to let Steve, Julian, and Garion fight to the death. I'm just kidding. Emerson, relax.
I'm a huge fan of that, to be honest with you.
It's put up your bukes. So I was just kidding, but only kind of.
All right, so Steven, you're going to give us 3 players you like for tonight's slate, and the guys will weigh in on your choices. So your first buke, please, have at it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mitch Moreland here for 16 DK fantasy points. I absolutely love him as a tournament target for tonight. You know, the haters are going to say that, Marquez is unhittable on the road. And they're slightly right. You know what? To Julian's credit, he absolutely nailed this part. Because, stat-wise, Marquez has been pretty much unhittable on the road. 180 ISO, 309 xFIP on the road through 29 innings. But then you kind of dive deep into it. And then it was against the Marlins, Pitchers Park. Against the Rays, Pitchers Park. The Giants, Pitchers Park. And then against the Brewers. And the Brewers, they knocked him for 4 runs on 7 hits. That's a non-Pitchers Park. Seeing a little trend here, are we?
Yeah.
I mean, look, could he have gotten a more cupcake schedule to put this, facade in front of us and think he's so good on the road? Give me Moreland all day. Batting cleanup, 366 WOBA, 396 ISO at home against right-handed bats. Mitch Moreland, 16 DK fantasy points tonight.
All right, Jules, we'll let you go first here. What do you think about Steve's point projection of 16 DK fantasy points for Mitchie?
Yeah, I mean, I hate that I don't hate this pick, but I love that Steve used some of the numbers that I was talking about or some of the research that I was talking about back when we covered Devers in tiers earlier. I do think this is a good tournament spot for Red Sox lefties. I think Marquez's road ERA is going to scare people away, but the spots have been easy, and he didn't perform that well when the spots got tougher, and this will be by far his toughest road spot of the season. So do I prefer trying to get some Astros in my lineup? Yes, but that's probably for cash games. If we're going to tournaments here, I think these are the Red Sox lefty bats are fantastic pivots, so I'm not going to fight Steve here, actually.
Garion, do you feel like fighting Steve?
I'm almost inclined to not fight Steve and take this minute to defend Kyle Lowry, but no, let's talk some baseball. Here's the thing with Mitch Moreland. He's a really expensive pivot play. I don't necessarily have a problem with this logic, but if you're breaking down your lineup construction and how you're doling out your salary, I mean, I also read Steve's wonderful work on the DK playbook this morning, and he loves Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's $11,000. You want me to use Mitch Moreland at 4.7 against a really good pitcher? I'm not going to knock the logic that he's gotten a cupcake schedule on the road so far, but you guys are really ignoring the 5 months of last season where he was like the best pitcher on the planet when he wasn't pitching at altitude. I'm not going to disparage that all of a sudden, but his strikeout rate does go from about 30% against right-handed bats to 20% against left-handed bats because he does not use that excellent slider as much in those right-on-left situations. So it's fine, but the guy we're going to talk about next is so much cheaper that I'd just rather use him at first base.
Steve, who's the guy we're going to talk about next?
Yeah, so, I was at my local supermarket today, and some of my fans came up to me like, look, we know you're going to talk about Mitch Moreland, but I do want to play Justin Verlander, so, what am I going to do? I said, listen, guys, don't fret. I got another option you can do, and I already can tell that Garion's on board. It's Ronald Guzman for 14 DK fantasy points. Look, he's going to be facing Jorge Lopez, who we've all been ragging on already, and he just can't get left-handed bats out. So, yeah, you look at Guzman, and look, his batting average is ugly. But you know what? Unless you're like an 85-year-old beat writer who still goes on batting average, we don't care about batting average. We care about the more advanced numbers here. And that's what I care about because he's got a 329 WOBA and a 379 ISO against righties, and he's going up against that gas can Lopez tonight. and he's very, very affordable, 3,800. Good matchup, good chance to go yard, and he's down in the order too. So if you're just stacking the Rangers 1 through 5, which probably the majority of people are going to do tonight, you're going to miss out on him in that stack. So that's another way to differentiate this Rangers stack tonight. Get probably a low-owned guy at first base. Has a good potential to go yard tonight. So 14 DK fantasy points. Boom.
You said all that in a conversation at the supermarket?
Yeah. I just had
Nerd
to
alert.
I just divulged all my notes.
In the
I have my
Gary
notes in front of
aisle,
me.
grabbing some eggs, having that combo.
Shopping list, notes for tonight, all on one sheet.
Yep. So, Garion,
Incredible.
are you agreeing with Steve on this one?
Well, if everyone had time in the morning to read Steve's article 4 times and then read mine even one, I also wrote up Ronald Guzman. It's a nice play. I sort of mentioned this with Gallo. My only concern here, and Steve brings up a good point about him batting 8th. It might make people not as keen to kind of throw him in the Rangers stacks. You can get some ownership differentiation, which is nice. But if Lopez is as bad as we think he's going to be, and I'm with Steve, I think he's going to be awful. He is a gas can by every definition of the term. He's got to get through 17 or 16 batters to face Guzman a second time. So if Guzman doesn't tag him that first time, I'm starting to get a little nervous about Ronald Guzman. But it's $3,800. That means your pitching is so solid that you only need this guy to hit one out of the ballpark. And if he hits one, as Steve alluded to, that isolated power, it suggests it's going to leave the ballpark.
Jules, you trying to fight Steve on this one?
I'll do a little bit of fighting here. We can't have a completely clean segment. I love what Garion's brought up twice now, even though he is in support of Guzman. If Lopez doesn't make it through this order, he just said 16 batters he's going to have to face to get him a second at-bat. I just don't know if I can spend $3,800 when we've got 2 lefties that are cheaper in Odor and Calhoun, who are $3,700 in the order, who are probably going to get another crack than Guzman here at Lopez. So I think that hurts a lot, particularly that those other bats are cheaper. And Guzman isn't. Yes, he definitely hits his home runs against right-handed pitchers, and that's what they're targeting. But his on-base percentage, his batting average, his OPS, those things are all lower against righties than they are lefties. So I don't know if I'm willing to give $3,800 here when we've got a guy like Gurriel on the Astros. Yes, much more highly owned, but to get Astros exposure for only $200 more, I don't know if I can go here for $3,800.
Steve, third Buke, please put it up.
So those same guys kept following me around. I went down the third aisle, and they're like, look, we need a little bit more here. Verlander's just killing me. So I'm like, look, all right, I'll give you one. It's probably going to be a little highly owned, but it's going to be Starlin Castro for 10 DK fantasy points tonight. He's the ultimate salary saver. He's batting cleanup. He's only $2,500. But like I said, the ownership's probably going to be pretty high. But all he does is hit lefties. That's all he's good for at this point of his career. 410 WOBA, 184 ISO with 2 of his 3 home runs. He's going to get the Birdman, Jalen Beeks. He's going to be on the mound. It's going to be he's going to be the long reliever for the Rays tonight. And look, Beeks has been fine, but he is allowing a 39% hard hit rate on the year, and he does tend to get a little bit wild at times on the mound. Look, the Marlins offense is terrible. There's a very good chance that Castro is not going to have any opportunity to knock anybody in because nobody gets on base. But Castro makes a lot of things fit tonight, and I think that's what's going to lead a lot of people to him. But if you're trying to get in Verlander, if you're trying to get in Moreland, this is a way to do so because he's so cheap. And you very rarely get a cleanup hitter this cheap, even if it is the Marlins, and they absolutely suck. But it is what it is. You want to get Verlander, this is going to be the way you can do that.
Jules, your thoughts, please.
My thoughts are these losers following Steve around the grocery store need to get a life quick. But if we're talking just about this pick, I can't argue too much on the value. A guy batting cleanup at $2,500, I'm fine with that because if you get a goose egg, you get 2-3 points. It's not the end of the world. What I will do is argue Steve on his total. I'm going to go under 10 here. I just think that's too lofty. How many times has Castro done that on the season? And just for the sake of argument, I'll offer another pick here. I'll say that Brian Anderson, who's batting second for Miami for just $2,800, will provide a little bit more value than Castro on this slate. But a $2,500 cleanup hitter, I can't tell Steve that that's not a guy you can play. And I think Castro's ownership will reflect that.
For the record, no one follows you anywhere.
Okay.
Gary, and we're going to give you 10 seconds to give your answer on this because we're running tight on time before we get to Slater. Please go.
I would just say sequencing is, again, an issue here. Just with Anderson and with Castro batting fourth. Stanek's gone 2 innings a bunch of times this season, so they might not actually face Jalen Beeks until the 4th inning to get these lefty splits everyone's craving. It might only be 1 at bat against a lefty, so be a little concerned about that.
All right, can't let you guys go until we get those slated proof picks. Gary, and who's your lock of the night?
I'm going to go with Mike Moustakas. I just love using those left-handed bats to pick on Arrieta tonight.
Steve.
Joey Gallo. Ba-boom! See ya.
Ba-boom! See ya. Jules?
Carlos Correa.
Ooh.
Chalky.
Interesting.
Okay. Those are those slated proof picks. All right, this has been The Sweat. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. We'll be back tomorrow at 6. Where? Twitter.
Yeah, it's been a while.
DraftKings Twitter,
Facebook,
YouTube,
the
and the
DK Live app,
which you should
download.
All right,
Right
we'll
now.
see you tomorrow
Okay.
night at 6 p.m., guys.
Adios. Bye. 4, 3, 2.